Welcome back. Well, we have Darren, Frye, and Arlan Suderman joining us. Corn futures hit their highest point since the end of February on Thursday. That was even before USDA released the WASDE report. And Arlan, soybeans made it above $10 again. Were you impressed with how the market responded this week, even despite China ramping up tariffs against the U.S.?
Yeah, it started with Thursday and Friday when the world was coming to an end and everyone was fleeing the markets and all the markets were down except corn. And it was rallying, and then wheat and soybeans joined in as well. And I think we're seeing some resiliency in it. So we'll talk about fundamentals here, but I think we need to acknowledge the money flow into these markets as they kind of see the food-based grain and oilseeds that have performed so poorly over the last several years as perhaps being a place that they want to be. And there are some fundamental reasons for that. And then today's USDA WASDE report just kind of reaffirmed that for corn and soybeans.
Yeah, Darren, when you look at how the market responded this week, what did it tell you?
Well, it told me that, even though a lot of things went risk off, there's some fundamentals that are behind corn, obviously. Like Arlan said, it held up really, really well. I also think some of the commodities that held up better were the ones the funds were already short, or they kind of had a desire to get maybe long, and so they didn't sell them, they didn't pummel them. But if you look at some of the markets, it really took it hard early on when all this tariff scuffle started. Markets like gold that were really long, or the cattle and the feeder cattle, they got hit pretty hard and they were risk off as well. But corn just held in there, and the funds are slight longs, but beans and wheat, all of it did pretty well. And that says things are turning. We've been in a bear market for 2.5, 3 years in wheat, and it's time that we're probably making a rounding bottom here and trying to head higher. And I think that's just around the corner.
Okay, a little preview of maybe what's to come here in this discussion. But real quick, Arlan, we see China has over 100% tariff on U.S. soybeans as well as meats and things. But when you look at that tariff on soybeans, is China actually still buying U.S. beans?
Well, Sinograin is. Now, most of the recent announced purchases have been changes from unknown destinations. So in other words, they just didn't declare who they were initially or where it was going. Sinograin is a state grain agency. In other words, if they pay the tariff, it's the right hand paying the left hand. Tariffs don't really matter. They buy for the reserves. So in theory, they could buy a lot of soybeans and then auction them out of the reserves. We also saw during Trump 1.0, when they truly needed soybeans, that they waived the tariffs. So whether the tariffs are 50% or 100% really doesn't matter. Either one shuts down trade until it doesn't anymore. It does hurt some of our energy exports to them. It hurts our cotton exports, our beef and our pork. When it comes to soybeans, I checked this morning, and soybeans delivered to the port in China were 47 cents cheaper if they came from Brazil than if they came from the U.S. Gulf. And that's bottom line. That's before any retaliatory tariffs. That's going to remain the case basically for a while, and based on the size of South America's production, probably until we get to the fourth quarter. And then how many beans will they need from us? And as I've been telling our clients the last 2 years, look out, because China is building up reserves. They're importing more than what they're crushing. They're building those reserves. And they do also have those reserves they can lean on as well.
Darren, let's switch gears a little bit. We had enough to talk about with trade already, but then on Thursday, we saw USDA release the latest WASDE report, USDA raising corn exports by 100 million bushels. Do you think that was enough?
I think there's more to come, but, they have subsequent reports to do more. And Arlan and I have talked about that. They're, way ahead of pace right now, the exports are, and we could see them raise it another 50 to 100 later in the year. If you look at where corn can be gotten from for all these countries that need it, we're kind of the only place right now. I mean, Argentina is coming online, but you're not going to have safrinha until July or August. And Ukraine obviously doesn't have anything to export. And so we're kind of the only show in town. And we should see demand stay very good for corn as we get through this old crop time frame.
So what was the biggest surprise in the WASDE report? We're going to ask Arlan Suderman that right after the break.